Obviously, it's extremely upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and, by extension, to all Canadians. I think particularly of Jewish MPs and all members of the Jewish community across the country who are commemorating Yom Kippur today.
Okay, guys, so for today, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest blunders that's happened in the House of Commons in a very long time. As you can see there, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, points out how embarrassing this is for us as Canadians and in particular the Jewish Canadians. And the reason for that is because this gentleman here, Anthony Rota, last week while President Vladimir Zelensky was in the House of Commons, decided to honor a former Ukrainian veteran who actually fought for the Nazis in World War II. Now, as this is Canadian politics, I doubt most of you or anybody really saw it, but if you did miss it, here's the clip of him addressing this gentleman and him getting a standing ovation from everyone in the House.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98. His name is Yaroslav Hunka. He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
Now, all this happened on Friday last week, and shortly after the speaker recognized this gentleman, he got a standing ovation. Word started coming out that he was actually involved with the Nazis due to an organization called Simon Wiesenthal Center, who has a goal to actually hunt Nazi war criminals. Now, on their main page, it says stop the mainstreaming of anti-Semitism. And after this came out, a lot of the parliamentary party members came out with their great regret and disdain for giving this gentleman a standing ovation. Now, I believe it was on Sunday, Anthony Rota came out and he gave an apology to the House of Commons. It wasn't a huge party there, but he addressed that he did this on his own choice. He was the one that decided to invite this gentleman because he was in his riding. He found out that he was a Ukrainian veteran who had fought against the Russians. And because Zelensky was going to be here, I guess, Ukraine, Russia, that kind of thing. And nobody did any research. And this has now become the huge crux of the whole situation because the government of Canada, the parliamentary government, Justin Trudeau, has a resource that is supposed to be utilized, especially for the House of Commons, that vets the people that are going to be attending the House of Commons and going to be actually in the House of Commons. This gentleman was up on the viewing balcony, which a lot of people can attend, but there has to be vetting and background checks to know who these people are, especially when you're having a foreign president who's currently in a war coming to our country to speak to our parliamentary house. And you need to know who's in the stands, who's in the area for safety reasons. And as a leader of the opposition, the Conservative Party addresses this aspect and says that this is a big blunder on the Liberals' side, that Trudeau should have had known who this gentleman was and did at least a little background check. That basically, even though Anthony Rota did invite him on his own accord, this was a big misstep on the Liberal government to not vet him regardless. And this was actually all addressed in today's question period. So here's that part.
Mr. Speaker, the question was for the Prime Minister. because indeed it is the Prime Minister's sole responsibility to guarantee the diplomatic success of major world leaders who come to this country. It is the Prime Minister whose government is responsible for both security and diplomatic vetting of everyone that comes in close proximity of a foreign leader on Canadian soil, particularly a foreign leader who is at war. The government has now admitted that they vetted everyone who was in attendance that day. Will the Prime Minister apologize for having vetted this individual and letting him come anyway?
Mr. Speaker, like all members of this chamber, I am incredibly disappointed in the fact that this individual was invited, as you yourself, Mr. Speaker, have confirmed by you, was recognized in the gallery. I found out, just like every other member in this House at that time, that this individual was present. This is deeply embarrassing for us as parliamentarians, as Canadians, and it is something that I think all of us take extremely seriously, and I would ask my honourable colleagues not to politicize this moment.
Now, even though Pierre brings up a very valid point about the vetting process here, you have people on the Liberal side, and I'm sure other people in other parties, coming out and saying things like this about Pierre, and the fact that he questions this.
Mr. Angus, the NDP and the Bloc so far have called for the removal of Mr. Rota. Why do you think the Conservatives and the Liberals haven't joined you in this?
No, I can't speculate. I think. I've known Anthony for 20 years. I consider him a very honourable man, but something really went wrong the other day, and Parliament was put in an untenable position, and we have to send a very clear message to the world that we do not ever stand up and celebrate people who have dubious past when it comes to the mass killings that happened in Ukraine and Russia in the Second World War.
Do you think the government bears any responsibility? The Conservatives were sure trying to make that point, but do they have any valid points about they invited President Zelensky, the Parliamentary Protective Service reports to them of who comes in? Do they bear any responsibility?
I'm very, very concerned that once again Pierre Poilievre is lighting fires and rage farming on something that I think is a national embarrassment and something that we don't want to play into Putin's hands. This was a constituent from Anthony Rota's riding. I accept that Anthony Rota made this decision on his own. When we were told that he was a veteran, I thought, okay, he's a veteran. And then I thought, did I hear him say he was a veteran fighting the Russians? Or I wasn't clear what was going on at that point. But that to me is clearly... this was Mr. Rota's decision, and I really don't want to politicize this anymore because I don't want to give any oxygen to the Putin troll army.
Now, some people might agree that it is a form of rage farming, getting people more upset with the Liberal Party for doing such a blunder and having such a misstep. But at the same time, another thing can be true in that the Liberal Party did actually mess up. Two things can be true at once. He could be farming rage in order for more people to vote Conservative, but the Liberal Party also did slip up on this at the same time. So two things could be true. But back to the clip from the House today, you see Pierre again continuously address this as the opposition, Karina Gould, continuously says, let's not politicize this. Let's not politicize this. Everybody here was kind of blindsided. And that's Pierre's point. People shouldn't have been blindsided. If you have the provision to do vetting on who's going to be in the House of Commons for any given day, then you should have had that information in particular about this individual. And here's the rest of that clip.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is responsible. He is in Ottawa today. He can get on his feet and answer for his massive diplomatic embarrassment and shame.
Stand up.
That minister admitted that the government vetted every single person that was here for the speech. That was the job of the government, which has an entire security and diplomatic apparatus set up for that purpose. Will he finally take responsibility for his latest embarrassment and apologize to Canadians for this massive mistake?
Mr. Speaker, as a descendant of Jewish Holocaust survivors, I am personally very hurt by the fact that this chamber recognized this individual. And I am sure that everyone feels the same way in this chamber. the Parliamentary Protective Service had the appropriate screening in place to ensure the security of last Friday's event, and that is what I was referring to, Mr. Speaker. But what I can continue to say is that we all must take this seriously.
It is the job of the Government of Canada, the Privy Council Office, which is the Prime Minister's personal department, the Prime Minister's security forces in the RCMP, to vet every single person that comes within proximity of a high-profile foreign war leader who is involved in a very difficult conflict right now. It was the job of the Prime Minister to protect that foreign leader from this massive embarrassment. If the Prime Minister failed to have vetting in place, then that in itself is a massive act of incompetence. Will he take responsibility and apologize for that?
Mr. Speaker, I would again ask the Leader of the Opposition to not politicize this issue. He knows just as well as everyone else in this chamber that the decision to invite this individual was yours, Mr. Speaker, and yours alone, that you did not inform the government or the Ukrainian delegation that you were inviting him or that you would recognize him. You made that public yesterday. The Leader of the Opposition knows that, and I would ask that he sticks to the facts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
If the Prime Minister is so proud of how he conducted himself, he would be on the floor in the House of Commons today answering questions instead of hiding under a rock. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are sick and tired of a Prime Minister who never takes responsibilities for the things that happen under his watch, whether it's the record high inflation or interest rates or the doubling of housing costs or the constant international embarrassments. He always finds someone else to throw under the bus. Are you that person?
Now, the interesting part is this Liberal member, Karina Gould, who, talks about how she's a Jewish descendant from the Holocaust, this and that, kept harping on the fact that nobody knew that who this gentleman was or that he was going to be there, because she actually got caught with a photo with this gentleman. Here she is holding this man's hand with, again, Anthony Rota, the Speaker of the House, also holding his other hand. Now, as a Jewish descendant of Holocaust survivors, I'm sure this deals great pain to her to know that she's holding the hand of somebody who potentially or was working with the Nazis and killed possibly Jews, Polish people, everything during that time. Because after this photo was posted on her Instagram and then this new information came out, she quickly took it down. But again, this is the internet. Once something goes up, it's there forever. And I'm sure this is going to haunt her now. And so she continues to say, let's not make this political. Nobody knew. It was the government's job to vet the people that are going to be there. And it just seems like nobody wants to take accountability outside of Anthony, who, again, he apologized on his own accord. Now, after his apology, there was a lot of people in the parliament who were asking for his resignation. Do I agree that he should lose his position, his title, everything because of a slip up like this or, a poor choice? Not sure. This is, pretty up there. And you could chalk it up to, again, human error, misstep, whatever you want. But at the same time, even if, again, he took it upon himself to invite this gentleman, he wanted to address him and, honor him while he was in the gallery, there's still some fault that should fall on somebody else who should have been vetting these people anyway. Because again, as Zelensky was in our House of Commons, if everyone else was vetted, as Pierre stated, and this gentleman wasn't vetted, who's to say he couldn't have been, a 98-year-old assassin or somebody who might do harm to people at his, you don't know. And that's why you have the vetting process, as Pierre stated. So I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air with it. Love to hear from you guys. Leave your comments in the comment section. I'll try to read as many as I can. And as always, I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.